Hi, and welcome to Zodiac Attempted Redemption, Episode 3. My name is Monty, your host and author. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. To recap Episode 2, we learn the relationship between Michael and his parents is anything but healthy. The two of them demanding, Michael too carefree, and the three of them had not learned to work in that middle space. We discover that the estate sale goes well, so well that Nikki and Michael have a place to stay for at least 6 months. We also see Michael's demeanor beginning to shift, and not in a positive way. Let's not forget Clara. She decides to present the letter to her co-workers at the morning staff meeting. We get a peek into the life of Michael's mother and her friend Anita. We also learn of Anita's house full of squatters. Michael's internal tremors, as he calls them, and the nightmares cause him to go through his grandparents' medicine cabinet, where he finds a collection of prescription medications. We leave Michael after he discovers the contents of the box marked Christmas decorations. And we finish the episode getting to know his grandfather a little better by going back to his childhood. Today, we'll pick up with Clara, present day, and the chapter is entitled The Decision. Chapter 11. The senior manager stood, clearing his throat, before issuing a warning. Anyone found to have leaked a single word about the letter before it's released will be dealt with severely. He meant it. The room went still. Moments later, only Clara and the three senior managers remained. She sat on one side of the long table. They sat on the other. Just how it worked out, but it felt pointed, uneven. Clara stayed quiet as they mulled over the letter, its contents, implications, and the fallout. She could almost see the gears turning. Action versus inaction, legal consequences, reputation. Finally, the one who had cleared the room, the same one who had issued the warning, stood. He paced, rubbed his hands together, and said, "I don't know what each of you are thinking, but let's start the conversation. At this point, I think we print the letter. Talk me out of it." Clara wasn't going to talk him out of it. She wanted it printed. She wanted the whole world to see it. As the conversation circled the table, one of the senior managers, Hal Benton, kept fiddling with his pen, tapping, spinning, tapping again. He hadn't said a word since the letter was first read aloud. Finally, Clara noticed his hands trembling slightly. "Hal?" the lead editor prompted. He shifted, looked up, like he'd been somewhere else the entire time. I covered the 89 copycat. It started with a letter too." The room went quiet. "I'm not saying don't print it," Hal continued, voice low, "but we need to be honest with ourselves about what this could set in motion." Clara met his eyes. "Maybe it's already in motion." Hal didn't respond, just tapped his pen one more time and looked away. The other two, they exchanged glances, then nodded and looked down at their notepads. They were yes men, Clara could tell. She also knew the letter was going to be printed. Clara was paired with Tabitha Moss, one of the senior writers. Together, they crafted the article that would accompany the Zodiac letter. By 11:33 a.m., the story had been submitted to the senior editor. Clara and Tabitha were proud, giddy even. The copy was sharp, thorough, unnerving in just the right way. Clara returned to her desk with a storm of questions whirling around in her head. What did this mean for her career? Would it open doors? Accelerate her retirement? Putting her on the national radar? She didn't know, but she liked the idea of change. The next morning, Clara sat at her desk in the dim quiet, lit only by her laptop. She stared at the front page, her article, above the fold, her name in bold font. She didn't need to read it again, but she didn't mind staring at it. She felt proud. Still confused why the letter had come to her, but grateful, too. If it had gone to anyone else in the newsroom, it would have stung. The phone rang. She jumped, bumped her coffee, and sloshed a few drops on her notes. Her phone rarely rang. She picked it up. Hello? There was silence. Hello, is someone there? A breath. Then, this is the Zodiac speaking. Clara froze. Through the glass, the office was still dark. She was alone. The next person, they wouldn't be in for another 30 minutes. Again. This is the Zodiac speaking. Her heart pounding in her chest. Yes, this is Clara. A pause. The article is very good, Clara. Well written. Do you think it will stop anyone? Her mouth went dry. Well, it would be nice if that was the case, wouldn't it? A longer pause. Clara, are you trying to figure out how to record this conversation? She hesitated, then told the truth. She didn't want to lose him. Yes? His response? I'll wait. She fumbled for the app on her phone, hand shaking. The voice, steady, deliberate, had the distortion of a cheap call masking filter, like something a YouTuber might use to prank their followers. It gave the words an unnatural quality, like they were coming from inside a storm. She pressed record. Okay, she said. Go ahead. Chapter 12. The Box. Michael woke with a damp washcloth on his forehead. He was lying on the air mattress. From the kitchen he heard Nikki singing. How long had he been out? Long enough to dream. Vivid, tangled dreams filled with his grandfather, himself, and the Zodiac. Faces, symbols, violence. Over and over. Too sharp, too real just to be dreams. What was happening to him? And the box? Maybe he should toss it, dump it in the trash, and forget it existed. Probably the smart move, because there was no way his grandfather was a Zodiac killer, right? The Zodiac was a sadistic psychopath, a monster. That wasn't his grandfather. Couldn't be. But then came the wave again. The heat, that crawling rage, the storm behind his eyes. It felt like there was something moving through him, like a virus, leaving something altered behind. Before he could spiral too far, Nikki appeared in the doorway. Great, you're up. The following evening, Nikki had gone shopping with her mom. He hadn't caught the details. All he heard was, you'll have the house to yourself for a couple hours. 5 minutes after they left, he was downstairs. The box waiting in the shadows, like it had been expecting him. Ordinary looking, until it wasn't. He laid everything out. The articles, the ciphers, the stained cloth, the watch. He'd done some reading since that first time, some research. The Zodiac had never been caught. There was one suspect, decent suspect, but nothing solid, no closure. Could it have been his grandfather? The articles, okay. Maybe. They could just be a collection. The ciphers? Also. But the watch, the bloody cloths. That's where the explanations ended. He knew why the Zodiac would have them. But his grandpa? There was no good answer. But he did have more questions. Is the Zodiac's blood running through my veins? Will this rage take me somewhere I can't come back from? Will I hurt someone I love? Nikki? My parents? He wanted to burn the box, burn the truth. Instead, he packed everything back up, shoved it deep into the corners of the room, went to the medicine cabinet, swallowed 3 or 4 more pills, and stepped out onto the back porch. An hour later, Nikki joined him with a Kohl's bag on her lap. She'd found a spring jacket on sale and was thrilled. Michael smiled. If Nikki was happy, he could be too. even with the pounding in his skull, even with the fire simmering just under his skin. The next morning, Nikki stirred early. She nudged his shoulder, kissed his cheek. "Don't forget, okay? We're meeting at the park at 10. Michael raised up. "What?" "For the church cleanup. You said you'd come, remember?" He nodded, barely awake. "Yeah, of course." By 10:50, she was gone, carrying gloves, a tote bag of snacks for the volunteers. She looked so proud, so ready. Michael, he never got out of bed. The minutes passed, then the hour, then 2. When Nikki returned, her shirt was smudged with dirt and her smile was tight. He tried to apologize, said his head was pounding, that he hadn't meant to fall back asleep. She said she understood. It wasn't a fight, just distance. And somehow, for Michael, that was worse. Later, with a promise to pick her up in 3 hours, he pulled into the lot just as a commercial faded out, and the familiar openings of Bloom by the paper kites began to play. It was their song. Michael reached to change the station. Nikki was still distant from earlier. She smiled, warmly, touched his arm and said, "Leave it." And the couple held hands, listened until the song was gone. Michael returned straight home, straight to the medicine cabinet. Took 2, maybe 3 more pills. He wondered, had his grandfather felt like this? Haunted by the thoughts until they broke him. He couldn't finish the thought. Wasn't ready. Nikki had noticed the shift. She chalked it up to stress. His parents, the house, grief. If she knew he was digging through his parents' old prescriptions, she would lose it. And she'd be right too. Michael didn't want clarity. He wanted quiet. Just a moment of silence. Something to still the rage, the buzzing under his skin. Something to make sense of the Zodiac shadow over his family tree. After dinner, he found himself in front of Aunt Anita's old house. He didn't remember driving there. The lights were on. The front door hung open. Music blasted from inside. Trash littered the yard. The once proud little home looked like it had been given up on. He got out, circled the house like it belonged to him. Behind the garage door, he found the old baseball bat he'd once left there for Anita's protection. Inside, laughter, voices, a door slam. Squatters. The rage boiled in his chest. He told himself he wasn't going in. But the fire inside didn't ask for permission. From the moment he stepped through the broken screen to the moment he slipped out the front door, maybe 4 minutes, he didn't feel human. He didn't see people, just problems. The bat didn't discriminate. He got in just enough good hits. Fast, silent, gone. The fire began to subside. Now he knew what calmed it. And that thought scared him more than anything else so far. Michael sat in the car, in front of the pet store. Nikki would be off soon. A man stepped outside, tall, athletic, laughing into a phone. From a distance, it could have been Steve. The voice leaned in. "That's him." Michael watched the man cross the lot, keys swinging from his hand. "He's good looking," the voice said. "Bet he has a real job. One with benefits." Nikki opened the passenger's door with purpose. The moment was gone. Michael had had an urge, but not tonight. But something had shifted. And the voice wasn't done. Chapter 13. A bonus gone wrong. The following day, Michael couldn't think of anything but the Zodiac, that box, his grandfather. They looped through his head like a broken record, crowding out everything else. Nikki had made lunch and insisted they eat on the back porch. The weather was perfect. She was happy. He was thinking about a serial killer. She'd gotten a small bonus at work, a thank you for resolving a delivery issue, and wanted a new pair of sneakers. He welcomed the distraction without thinking it through. For over an hour, he was surrounded by shoe boxes. every size, every color, every pattern. By the time they left, his stomach churned and his head throbbed. The fresh air helped a little. The Zodiac killed young couples just like us, happy, in love, their whole lives ahead of them. That would repeat like a curse. 2 days later, he kissed Nikki goodbye and watched her walk into work. Checked the clock on the radio. 2 hours to himself. The fire was still there, the need. He tried every bottle in the cabinet, mixed a few. Nothing worked. But after the squatters, after the violence, he felt peace. Short-lived, but it was real. For 2 whole days, he was himself again. The Michael Nikki loved. The one she noticed had come back. She smiled more, touched him more, laughed with him more. If killing gave him that peace, was that what his grandfather found too? Was this the why? Or was he just a monster? He didn't know the answer to that yet, but he knew this. If peace came at a cost, maybe that's what he'd do. Write his own story, his own redemption story, one target at a time. The voice knew where to go. At 5:15, the man came out, duffel bag over his shoulder, earbuds in. Michael followed him for 2 blocks. Then the man stopped to greet someone, a woman, mid-20s, high ponytail. She smiled and said, "Jake, you're looking great." Then a hug lingered. Not Steve. Michael stood still on the sidewalk, breath shallow, the voice saying nothing. He didn't have to. Present day. Clara fumbled with her iPhone, finally figuring out the voice recorder app. She'd never used it before, but it was simple enough. The Zodiac waited, just like he said he would. Then he spoke, calm, cold, familiar somehow. "This is the Zodiac speaking." She shivered, hit record. "The article was very good, well written. Do you think it'll stop anyone?" Clara deflected, let him lead. "Do you?" she asked. A pause. A breath. "No, we're flawed, Clara. From top to bottom, flawed. The Zodiac will be looking for opportunities. It's important those with the most flaws know this. It will be fate. Their fate." Another pause. "Do you like games, Clara?" "No, not really, if I'm being honest." "Good, me either. So let's be honest with each other. I'll go first." A beat in time. "I'll be visiting the Mission District." Clara's throat tightened. "Now your turn. Do you believe I'm related to the real Zodiac?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Yes, I believe you." Then the line went dead. Chapter 14. The Mission District. The Mission District had something for everyone. Trendy restaurants, cozy bed and breakfasts, boutique shops, craft cocktail lounges, and of course, Mission Dolores Park. Murals climbed the walls in bursts of color, a patchwork of street art that turned alleyways into galleries, bright strokes, sharp edges, a kaleidoscope of local history and resistance. But after dark, the mood shifted. Some corners lost their charm, slipped into something colder, harder. The authorities knew those corners well. They kept eyes on every block. If the Zodiac went there, they'd catch him. Michael knew this. He had no intention of being anywhere near the Mission District that night. But he'd not lied to Clara either. He had visited, briefly. Then he followed his targets across the bridge to Oakland. There were 6 of them. Dealers. Not the kind with the puffy jackets and gold chains. These guys were polished, structured, professional. Gang-affiliated, most likely. Michael didn't need inside information to know that. All it took was a parked car, a pair of eyes, and a working brain. He watched them operate, watched them move cash, watched them leave, watched them return. This was his second night targeting them. He knew the rhythm now. They pool the money at a house less than 30 minutes from the main strip. Last time, he'd only stayed 20 minutes, long enough to see 5 different groups of young men enter through the back. This wasn't street-level hustle. This was organized. Tonight he waited for the neighborhood to settle, for porch lights to go dark, for traffic to thin, for the shadows to deepen. Fewer cars, fewer eyes, less risk. The license plates were stolen, the car was clean, and this wasn't the kind of neighborhood that called the cops. He wasn't sure if he was ready to call himself a criminal yet, but his mind was leaning hard in that direction. At some point, he drifted off. When he woke, it was just past midnight. He sat up, waited 20 more minutes, then movement. The back door creaked open. 3 men stepped outside. 2 were massive, broad, heavy set, the kind who broke bones for a living. The third was leaner. Each of the bigger men carried a duffel. Cash. Michael's plan shifted instantly. 3 targets instead of 6. That he could manage. He counted 8 seconds. No backup, no shadows, no sound from inside. They walked towards a truck at the corner. Full size, new, chrome wheels. Money. Michael stepped into the dark, took position. His finger hovered over the trigger. For half a second, he thought about Nikki, about the box, about how far he'd come and how far he'd fallen. Then he pulled. 3 shots, 3 bodies. It was clean and quick, fast. It had to be. He jogged to the truck, grabbed the bags. His pulse was still pounding when he dropped the duffels in the back seat, hands trembling, not from fear, adrenaline, triumph. Closed door, exhaled. Then his phone buzzed. Nikki. He stared at the screen. A missed call, then a text. "Are you still coming? We're lighting candles in 15. Pastor was asking about you." Michael winced. The midnight mass, he'd forgotten entirely. Late night prayer from the missionaries the church supported around the world, a monthly event. Nikki always looked forward to it. She'd even bought extra candles, said it helped her feel grounded. He tapped the message open, typed, stopped. What was he supposed to say? That he was too far away? That he just shot 3 people in the dark and didn't feel bad about it? His hands hovered over the screen. Then he locked the phone and dropped it on the passenger seat. Outside, the neighborhood held its breath. Inside, Michael closed his eyes. He could still see the candlelight sanctuary in his mind. Warm, golden, peaceful. He could picture Nikki in the second pew, her face glowing. He wondered if the prayers would be enough to reach a man like him. He thought he knew. Chapter 15. Where the Peace Lives. Michael and Nikki slept in. It was 10:15 when the neighbor's dog lost its mind at the mailman. They stayed tangled in the sheets, laughing at the sound, limbs warm and lazy, like nothing outside really mattered. It couldn't touch them. For the first time in a long time, Michael felt good. Not just okay. Good. No headache, no static behind the eyes. No, other things, the kind that crawled at him when he was alone. Nikki had the day off. They'd made a pact. No talk about work, no to-do list, no stress, just the 2 of them. Michael told Nikki he'd picked up a couple of side jobs with an old friend, some under-the-table mechanical work, manual labor. That explained the walking around money and the reason he had slept through the candle lighting ceremony. The physical labor had taken more of a toll on him than he knew. Cash he usually didn't have. Lies he usually didn't tell. He'd unpack that stuff later. Today wasn't about guilt or gray lines. Today was about brunch, maybe a drink downtown, whatever made Nikki smile. And what made her smile was a trendy little place downtown. Organic ingredients, waiters in band t-shirts, tables named after dog breeds. One of her coworkers had raved about it. The food was good. The prices were high. They made Michael wince. But Nikki took a dozen photos and giggled the whole way through, which meant it was worth every penny. The name of the place looked like a squiggly line, then a word. When Michael pointed that out, she elbowed him gently and said, "Shut up and smile." Afterward, they wandered through the shop-lined streets. Window shopped, they agreed. Michael kept telling himself he had enough money to buy her anything she wanted, within reason. But every time she turned her head, even for a second, the weight crept back in. It wasn't his money, and it hadn't been earned. If he'd stopped to think, really think, he could spiral. So he didn't. He smiled, laughed, held her hand. He wasn't a thief, not by nature. But he hadn't been a killer either. Not until now. That was the part that sat quiet and awful deep down inside. He kept touching his pocket. The money felt hot, like it knew. They paused at a street artist table. She worked at a steady pace, painting a snow-covered cabin nestled in a piney forest. A curl of smoke from the chimney, the soft orange glow of firelight through frosted windows. It felt warm, real, like peace, captured in paint. Nikki leaned into him. "Do you think we'll ever do something like that?" Michael smirked. "I mean, I can't paint." She laughed, but that wasn't what she had meant, and he knew it. She meant a quiet life, a place of their own, a dog maybe, a porch swing. She meant safety, stability, a future. He wanted with all his heart to be able to tell her yes. Wanted to believe it himself, but part of him knew better. He stared at the painting like it was a window, one he wasn't allowed to step through. His grandfather had been a career military man, respected, structured, disciplined. His father, a suit and tie accountant, dependable, predictable. But Michael had seen through all that, the clean shirts, the forced smiles, the polished lives that looked good in pictures but hid 1,000 cracks behind. To him, it seemed like the world was pretending, faking it. Maybe that was the answer. Pretend hard enough, maybe it becomes real. He had a pocket full of cash. He looked like the perfect boyfriend, out with the perfect girl. But in his head, a voice was screaming, "Monster," then softer, "You can fake it. We can help you." Chapter 16. The Detective and the New Zodiac. He had been watching from afar. Was it too soon? To others, absolutely. To him, not at all. Sean had always been curious about the Zodiac, maybe even a little obsessed. There was a time when newspaper clippings covered the entire dining room table. Jill had threatened to dump a pitcher of water over his head, and the articles. He remembered that. Missed her even more clearly. And now, someone claimed to be related to the original Zodiac was killing, sending letters to the press. Sean was intrigued. More than intrigued. He was sitting at the gate, boarding pass in hand. In a few hours, he'd be on the ground in California. He had told Kenny he just needed a few days. It wasn't the first time. Probably wouldn't be the last. If he said he missed Jill, it would only be a half-truth. He had been strong for the kids. That's what being a single parent required. Before she got sick, he would have sworn he could handle anything life threw at him. Turned out, he couldn't. He'd hired help, stayed connected, but barely. The grief made it hard to be present. He still felt guilty, still talked to Jill at night. His distraction? Killers. specifically serial killers. So, this new case, it wasn't just a headline. It was purpose, something to chase, something to feel. He booked a long weekend in San Francisco, rented a convertible, wore a Don Johnson-style suit. If you're too young for that reference, look it up. The tank top underneath? Teal. He felt good, like someone new, or maybe just someone old finally resurfacing. Therapy had helped, some. He had worked on his own, trying to improve himself, trying to soften the sharp edges. He would always love Jill, would always love the kids. But if he was honest with himself, he was lonely. All those nights at the office, all those hours buried in crime reports and cold cases. He got old. He was ready to try again, maybe. A new city might not be the ideal place to start something real. Or maybe it was exactly the right place. But his mind kept circling back. The killer. Was it real? A copycat? A legacy? And why Clara? Why the letter? Why now? What made this resurface? He didn't have the address yet. But he would. He needed to walk the neighborhoods, feel the scene. Did the killer live nearby? Could it be a woman? Unlikely, but he couldn't rule it out. So many questions. He tried to stay awake on the flight, but somewhere over the Rockies he drifted off, straight into the one place he'd been trying to avoid. The balcony, where Jill took her last breath. She looked so beautiful. Back then that image had comforted him. Now, it haunted him. A tapping on his shoulder pulled him out of it. He'd been loud. Jill used to tease him about his bad dream noises, but this was a packed flight. Perfect. The guy behind him was about his age, a little fitter. His wife, gorgeous, kind smile, effortlessly warm. Sean felt a flicker of jealousy, then guilt. He apologized for whatever nonsense he'd muttered. At baggage claim, he tried to avoid them, but they kept popping up. Finally, the man approached him. "Sean, this is going to sound weird," he said, "but my sister thinks you're a detective, or were one, someone she saw on TV. She's a true crime junkie. Personally, I think she's nuts. But, is she right?" Sean hesitated. Then he said, "Yeah, she's right." Her name was Faith Morgan, and yes, she was obsessed. She knew the Miles Humphreys case inside and out. Recognized Sean from the old panel events years ago. Said he'd been with a woman who clearly wanted to leave. That would have been Jill. Faith's brother shook hands with Sean and said, "Just get her home safe." Sean half expected a hidden camera crew. Stuff like this didn't happen in real life. They spent 3 hours talking. Drinks, food, and the kind of conversation that just flowed. They talked about Jill, about Faith's ex, Ryan, about kids, life. It felt effortless. By the time he pulled up to her family's driveway, one thought lingered. At the very least, I'd made a friend, he thought. Then she surprised him. "Would you like someone who knows the area to show you around while you're in town?" Sean didn't even have to think. A man would be crazy to turn down an offer like that, he said. And I think that'll be a good place for us to stop today. Again, I appreciate everyone's support. Have a great day.